All right. Why is intimacy important? Intimacy is important because the whole concept of marriage is built for intimacy. Two people becoming one. Intimate means into my mate. It means both of us getting into each other. Some people call it intimacy, into me, you see. The important thing is that it is two people actually becoming one. That is the mystery of marriage. If two people come together and still remain two, it has literally defeated the whole purpose of doing marriage. Unfortunately for us, we build marriages around a lot of other things except our partner. Many people build their marriages around having kids. Many people build their marriages around being influential. Many people build their marriages around enhancing their career or businesses. We are building it around every other thing except the main thing is supposed to be built around, which is two people becoming one. The two shall become one flesh. That word flesh means person. So what they are saying is that two people will actually become so synchronized, so connected, so joined that they become one person. They become one both spiritually, mentally, and physically. They become one person. And intimacy is the most, any marriage can survive anything if there's intimacy. Marriages don't fail because of the challenges we think. They fail because of a lack of intimacy. It's not another thing that makes marriage fail. It's because of a lack of intimacy. Any marriage can survive infertility if there's intimacy. Any marriage can survive infidelity if there's intimacy. Any marriage can survive insufficient funds if there's intimacy. Any marriage can survive interference if there's intimacy. What is lacking is not is intimacy. The marriage didn't break because of the interference. The interference thrived because there was no intimacy. Is somebody getting what I'm saying? It's very normal, and it happens where one of the in-laws don't like somebody. All those things are not strong enough to break a marriage. What actually allowed that thing to thrive is because there was no intimacy. Is somebody getting what I'm saying? Infertility can't break any home. It's the lack of intimacy. It's because you don't see yourselves joined that made you feel that because we don't have kids, we can separate. Intimacy can make any marriage thrive. And that is where the real blessings of marriage begins to happen. When you are able to build intimacy. And that's what I want to take the short time we have today to talk about. If you can build intimacy, you can walk through any challenge you have. If you can build intimacy. So we're going to use an acronym today titled INTIMATE. Because what we're talking about is getting intimate. So we're going to use an acronym titled INTIMATE. We're going to use all the letters there to tell you about how to build intimacy. So I'll take one, she'll take one. All right. Number one. But basically, what does intimacy mean? It means a deep connection and closeness. So it's just basically two becoming one, okay, in summary. So number one is I, which stands for, do I have slides, guys? I don't know where it's pointing to. Okay. Number one is intentional. We're using the acronym INTIMATE. I is intentional. So listen, guys, you cannot build intimacy without being intentional. What many people assume is that when the Bible says you will live and cleave and become one, they think it is automatic. That's what they assume. That once they just join us on the altar, once Pastor Oche says, say I do, and you say I do, that we just automatically become one. Not at all. What happens here is a ceremony. The process of becoming one is something both of you need to work on. So it has to be intentional. You cannot achieve intimacy without intentionality. You cannot achieve intimacy without intentionality. So the question, see, no marriage breaks just ordinarily. People drift apart. That's what happens. If you are not consciously moving closer to each other, you are already drifting apart. Is somebody getting what I'm saying? If you are not consciously moving closer to each other, you are already, as I'm speaking, drifting apart. Somebody asked me that, can love die? Of course, love can die. Love can grow and love can die. As powerful as fire is, fire needs something to burn. I don't know if you get what I'm saying. As powerful as fire is, if there's nothing for fire to burn, after it does, it's going to go off. It needs something to burn. That's how the passion of marriage is. Without intentionality, no matter how that marriage started, the love will die. So you must be intentional. What happens to a lot of couples? We have a book that we titled, You Don't Need a New Spouse. What we discovered, Pastor, is that a lot of people that start marriage, when they're excited, they start. But along the line, after 1 year, 2 years, 3 years, they start thinking, maybe I married the wrong person. And they start thinking, I need a new spouse. And we try to address in that book, you don't need a new spouse. What you need is a new commitment, a new passion to your old spouse. Because what happened to you is that when you started the relationship, you started emotionally. It was emotional love. Everything was automatic. You were making sacrifices. If you notice, when you started, you were doing all the right things, but you were not doing it consciously. You were making sacrifices. I used to say, if your fiancé then lived in Jos or in Kaduna, Abuja to Kaduna will be very close. You say, like, weekend, you're going to run down to Jos. You're going to run down to Kaduna. If you're in Lagos, you're going to run down to Ibadan to go and see the person. It's not feeling far, but right now, after many years of marriage, to even go from the bedroom to the parlor, is far. What has happened? At the beginning, it was emotional love. And what will make a marriage last is for you to go from emotional love to intentional love. So what is the difference? When it was emotional love, you were doing all the right things, but you were not doing it consciously. When it's intentional love, you will still do all the right things, but now you are doing it intentionally. So you are making sacrifices now consciously. Before, you were making sacrifices unconsciously. So that's why both of you fell in love and got married. But you stopped doing it at a point. So you have to start again to become intentional. Good couples are compatible by chance. Great couples are compatible by choice. All right? Good couples are compatible by chance. So they just mistakenly like some things and they do those. No. But great couples begin to now do things intentionally together. All right? So the first key is to be intentional. Be intentional about knowing them, be intentional about meeting them, be intentional about spending time. All right.
Okay. So the second thing when it comes to getting intimate is meeting each other's needs. So the next one is N, needs. The truth is that we're usually responsive to people who give to us. It's one of the reasons why we're intimate with God. He meets all our needs. In fact, if you think about it, if God does something for you in particular, that week you will come up with new names for him.
Yes.
It's Jehovah Elephizi, the God who is always on time.
Yeah.
You know, you come up with new, and you feel closer to him because he has met a need, probably a pressing need. Maybe one you didn't even, you didn't know that, you didn't think that he would meet. So it's the same thing when it comes to building intimacy in your marriage. You must be responsive to each other's needs. Meet needs, emotional needs, physical needs, mental needs, spiritual needs. There are things that your partner needs. If you are consistent in meeting those needs, you will find yourselves getting closer and more intimate. And one of the ways to know how to meet your partner's needs is to speak your partner's love language. One of the reasons why people seem to lack intimacy and it becomes a big problem is that the woman has a need and she feels like her husband is not meeting it. But her husband feels like, I'm doing so much, you are just an ungrateful woman. She's not an ungrateful woman. You are doing a lot of things, but you are doing the wrong things.